A young flight attendant opens her eyes in a hospital bed. She does not know where she is. She does not know why her body hurts. She remembers an airport. She remembers passengers. Then, nothing. The doctors know the truth, but they are afraid to tell her. She has fallen from the sky. Her name was Vesna Vulović. In January 1972, she became the only survivor of a plane disaster that killed everyone else on board. The official record says she survived a fall of more than 33,000 feet without a parachute. How can a person survive something like that? Before that day, Vesna was not a record. She was not a headline. She was a young woman with a uniform, a job, and plans for the future. She could not know that one ordinary flight would divide her life into before and after. Vesna was born in Serbia in 1950. As a young woman, she loved travel, music, and the idea of seeing the world. She did not plan a quiet life. She wanted movement. She wanted cities, airports, languages, and new places. So when she became a flight attendant for JAT, Yugoslavia's national airline, the job felt like a door opening. There was one strange detail. According to later interviews, Vesna was not supposed to be on that flight. The airline had confused her with another flight attendant who had the same first name. It was a simple mistake, the kind of mistake that usually disappears into ordinary life. But this mistake placed Vesna on Flight 367. JAT Flight 367 was traveling from Stockholm to Belgrade. It had planned stops in Copenhagen and Zagreb. On January 26, 1972, the aircraft landed in Copenhagen. Vesna and the secondary crew boarded there. The passengers came back onto the plane. The doors closed. The aircraft took off again. Try to imagine the scene. It is a normal winter afternoon. People are sitting in their seats. Some are tired. Some are looking out of the window. The crew is working. A flight attendant's job is made of small actions: smile, check, serve, listen, move through the narrow aisle. Nothing looks like history yet. Then, at about 4:01 in the afternoon, everything changed. An explosion tore through the aircraft. The plane broke apart in the air. Cold air rushed in. Pieces of the aircraft fell toward the snowy land below. 27 people would die. Vesna was still inside part of the wreckage. Wreckage means the broken parts left after a crash. Investigators later believed Vesna survived because she was trapped inside a section of the fuselage, the main body of the aircraft. A food cart may have pinned her in place. The piece of plane fell through trees and landed on a snowy slope near a village in Czechoslovakia. Snow can be dangerous, but that day it may have helped save her. The trees and the deep snow softened the impact. The aircraft section did not hit flat ground in the worst possible way. It came down at an angle, sliding and breaking through branches. Survival was still almost impossible, but almost impossible is not the same as impossible. Near the crash site lived a man named Bruno Honke. He had served as a medic during the Second World War. In the dark and cold, he heard sounds from the wreckage. He found Vesna alive. She was badly injured, but she was breathing. Because he had medical experience, he was able to help keep her alive until rescuers arrived. Vesna was taken to hospital. Her injuries were terrible: a fractured skull, broken legs, broken ribs, a broken pelvis, and serious damage to her spine. She was paralyzed from the waist down. For days she was in a coma. A coma is a deep unconscious state. The world continued around her, but she was not awake inside it. When Vesna finally woke up, she did not remember the crash. She did not remember falling. She did not remember being rescued. Later, she said she remembered greeting passengers before the flight and then waking up in hospital with her mother near her. In her mind, the most famous fall in aviation history was a blank space. The doctors had to tell her what had happened. Imagine hearing that every other passenger and crew member was dead, but you were alive. Vesna later spoke about guilt. Guilt is the heavy feeling that you have done something wrong, even when you have not. She had survived, but survival did not feel simple. Her recovery was long. At first, she could not walk. Her body had been broken in many places. Doctors operated. Nurses helped. Family waited. Slowly, Vesna fought her way back. After months of treatment, she learned to walk again. She would have a limp, but she could stand, she could move, she could return to life. Investigators said a bomb had exploded in the aircraft's baggage compartment. No one was ever arrested. Yugoslav authorities suspected Croatian nationalist extremists. On the same day, another bomb exploded on a train between Vienna and Zagreb. The story became part of a larger period of political violence connected to Yugoslavia. In 1985, Vesna entered the Guinness Book of Records. She was recognized for the highest fall survived without a parachute. The number was about 10,160 meters, or 33,330 feet. Paul McCartney presented her with the award, a strange and beautiful moment for a woman who had loved British music as a teenager. Years later, some journalists and researchers questioned the official version. They suggested the aircraft may have been shot down by mistake and may have fallen from a much lower altitude. Other aviation authorities and experts rejected that theory, pointing to the official investigation and flight data. For this episode, we keep the record as the official version, but we remember that history can be argued over. In Yugoslavia, Vesna became famous. Newspapers followed her recovery, people knew her face. Songs and television shows turned her into a national symbol. But fame can be a strange gift. Many people saw a miracle. Vesna saw pain, loss, and a life that had been divided into before and after. People often called her lucky. Vesna did not always agree. If she was lucky, she said, then why did the accident happen at all? Why did so many people die? Why did her parents suffer from fear and worry? This is an important word, lucky. It sounds simple, but in a story like this, the word becomes complicated. After recovering, Vesna wanted to fly again. She had no memory of the crash, so she did not feel the same fear that many people expected. But the airline did not want her back in the air. Instead, she returned to JAT in an office job. She worked with documents and travel contracts, far from the sky that had changed her life. Vesna's later life was not only about the crash. In the 1990s, she spoke against Slobodan Milosevic and joined protests in Belgrade. This mattered. She was a national figure, and national figures can be useful to governments. But Vesna did not stay quiet. She used her name for political causes she believed in. Because of her views, she said she lost her position and was pushed out of work. Still, she continued to appear at demonstrations. She was difficult to attack publicly because many people saw her as a hero. Her survival had made her famous, but her choices after the crash showed another kind of courage. In later years, Vesna lived a quieter life in Belgrade. She was recognized by strangers, but recognition is not the same as peace. She carried pain in her body and memories in fragments. She could speak about the accident, but she could not remember the moment itself. The center of her story was missing from her own mind. Vesna Vulović died in December 2016 at the age of 66. News reports around the world remembered her as the woman who fell from the sky. But that title is only part of her life. She was also a worker, a daughter, a patient, a public voice, and a person who had to live for decades after the miracle. Vesna's story is often told as a miracle, but miracles can be heavy things to carry. She survived the fall, but she also had to survive the years after it. In the end, she was more than the woman who fell from the sky. She was the woman who kept living after the world had already decided what her story meant.